welcome back to Lost Study Kid. This is episode 3 of my series called My Struggles of Being a Foreign Trained Lawyer in Canada. Today we're going to talk about overthinking. So this was one of my struggles while I was preparing for the NCA exams, bar exams, and just going through this process. And sometimes I continue to struggle with this. But, it has become better than before. At least that's what I'd like to think. And so I want to talk a little bit more about it and then talk about how I've been able to be better at it. One of the things that I do want to highlight here is that overthinking is something that you are taught in law school. So if you are an anxious person from the beginning, and in law school they teach you to overthink everything. So you have a case, and you have to look at it from all angles, and you have to think about the worst case scenario. So you automatically start to overthink a lot of things. And I've noticed this pattern when I started law school, and then I, moved to Canada. I did my master's. I've always been trained to be a lawyer, and so overthinking has become a part of my life. Sometimes I will do this in my personal life too, where I'm overanalyzing things. Whereas they're not needed to be overanalyzed. I could just be human and just live. So if you do experience overthinking, I think that you should give yourself benefit of the doubt that this is something that you're trained to do, and that's a skill that is required to be a lawyer, but not necessarily in other parts of your life or just career. Overthinking can be good too, because it prepares you for worst case scenarios, or it prepares you for situations that you may not think will arise. But overthinking a lot can actually harm you. So let's talk about some of the things that I experienced. From my experience, I used to overthink a lot of different things. So let's start with finishing my master's program at Osgood and then figuring out what my next step is going to be. Now, I've talked about this before. I did not do my master's to complete my NCA courses. I just specialized in business law, international business law, and I didn't use NCA courses as part of my master's. So when I graduated, I had no idea what to do next. When I moved to Canada, I didn't think I was going to be a lawyer. I was like, well, let me do my master's and then figure out the rest later on. So I guess even from the starting point, applying for that NC assessment, I would overthink things so much. What if they say I can't be a lawyer? What if they say that, well, you have to now write, 10 courses. What am I going to do then? Or, what if I start this NCA assessment process and in the middle I find out that I cannot provide them with a document or something like that? All these scenarios that have never happened. I don't know if they were ever going to exist, but I would overthink things just to. It goes back to the point of fear and self-doubt too. These things are all related. So even that first NC assessment that I had to apply for, it took me ages to finally be like, okay, just apply and see what happens. I remember one time when I was doing my master's program, I had this coordinator there, and she was taking the same bus from the school to a station, and I happened to run into her, and we were sitting on that bus. I still remember, from York University to, at the time, I think it was, I don't know which station it was, but anyway, so she was taking the same bus as me, and she was talking to me about, okay, what are you doing now? And I was like, well, I haven't applied for an NC assessment. I'm still doing my master's. I don't know what to do. And she looked at me and she's like, do you know that there are people who are half as talented as you are and they still go through this process? What's stopping you? And I'm like, And she's like, well, why don't you apply and see what happens? And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I guess so. I don't know what I was overthinking about. So sometimes someone actually nudging you and being like, see, can be helpful. So one of the examples of overthinking, so starting the process. Now, over the years when I was writing these NCA exams, I would overthink things too, and that's why I over-prepare as well, which is a good thing in my opinion. For all the NCA exams, I think I over-prepared because, again, I overthink. I was overthinking a lot of things, but that overthinking, in my opinion, is good because it really sets your foundation in terms of what you want to do and how you want to start your career. When you are studying for these NCA exams, it gives you a good basis for just starting things out. So when I was writing these NCA exams, I think overthinking would be like, should I, like reading the book, reading the notes, doing sample questions and answers, like reading the syllabus 5 times, or like reading the book, I don't know how many times. It's just overdoing things. But this kind of overthinking, I think, may not be bad for you. One of the things that I also noticed that when I would apply for jobs and prepare for interviews, I would overthink this thing so much to the point that when you go into the actual interview, you forget to be a human yourself, and then you're just like presenting yourself in a way where it's like, okay, you've thought through everything, and that's not the point of interviews. You have to come up as a person and then also showcase your abilities. So in this situation, like when I go to interviews, I would like prepare a hell of a lot, which is not bad. I don't think it's bad, but you don't have to prepare a hell of a lot to the point that you can't be yourself. Like you just start acting like a robot in front of the person. I do remember one time I was interviewed at one of the government positions, and when you are interviewing for the government, they don't look at you. As soon as you start talking, they start writing notes. So you're speaking to people who are not looking at you. And so I just felt as though I was a robot there because I was just saying things, and because no one's looking at me, I can't have a conversation, and I would just constantly be talking like I'm writing an essay, which is not, I don't know, like I don't know how, now that I'm on the other side where I have a job and, we look for people to hire, the first question is, can I have a conversation with this person? And then everything else comes after. So I think I did overthink a lot of the interviews that I did in the past, but sometimes it's good too. But there are no set rules, but you just have to understand like what works and when does it work. The result of this overthinking, I've sort of reflected on this a lot more now because sometimes at work or just generally too, I can overthink things. Now, overthinking comes from lack of guidance or lack of knowledge or lack of understanding of what things be. So you overprepare and you think of all different scenarios and you just want to be perfect at everything that you're doing. So rather than seeking out guidance, you sit there in this hole and you think and overthink things as opposed to taking the action of going out, testing things, and seeing what it's like. So now, again, I'm not perfect, nowhere close to being perfect, but the thing that I realized is that, rather than being in this place of thinking things 50 times, why don't I take imperfect actions and see? So get out of this hole, take actions, do little things, try it out, see how I feel, try to gather the information that I need, and then see how I feel, and then make a decision. Because if I don't do that, I'm still going to be at the point where I haven't started. I'm just going in this spiral. This has helped me a lot. So for example, I have recently started a new project with the immigration firm that I'm working with. And so those of you who don't know, I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer, and I've always wanted to talk about immigration like I do here with Law Study Kit. And I haven't, it took me ages to start it, and I'm still building it. It's very, very new. But sometimes I will overthink things because, when I create content for for Law Study Kit, it's educational content. When I create content as an immigration lawyer, I have law society rules. There's certain conduct you need to be upheld. You're not really giving legal advice, but at the same time, you're giving some sort of information. So my overthinking is like, what if I say, even though I am pretty confident in my immigration skills at this point, at the same time, I'm also human, and I'm worried that, I don't want to say something out in public that may be considered like, oh, there are different ways of doing things, or maybe this is something that, I need to look into a little bit more. I need to do a little bit more research. So that's me overthinking. But but at the same time, why don't I just take a step back and do something small and see how it goes? So that's how I've overcome that hurdle now. But it kind of goes on and on. I don't know I don't know if it's ever going to end. I hope so. But I don't see this ending. It's still there. I still work on it. And I'd like to think I've become better at it. I don't know if I am perfect at it, and I don't think I'm ever going to be. But this is something that I've experienced in the past, and hopefully, these tips may help you too.